Hey y'all, I wanted to share my birth experience today. You may have seen my birth vlog, but I just kind of wanted to talk through everything so I can remember it, but also hopefully it helps you guys during your labor and pregnancy and all that. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Ashley. I am a first-time mom at the age of 40 after 12 years of infertility. So if you haven't seen that story, go watch it because that'll kind of get you up to speed. So Wade was due on November 28th, and I went to my doctor's appointment on November 24th, and I still had not dilated at all. And so I was a little discouraged from that, and my doctor gave me no hope that I was going into labor anytime soon. So leaving there, I was like, great, see you next Tuesday. And then we went ahead and scheduled an induction for the following Wednesday, which would be December 2nd. And so my last doctor's appointment was going to be the day before that. So life continued on. But on that Saturday, I was going for a walk and my mom met up with me and we were walking and I was just really off. My emotions were off. The way my body felt off. And then once I got home, I was just talking to Matt. I'm like, I feel really off. I feel really moody and I don't know, things are just different feeling. And I started thinking, I was like, it really feels a lot like it would right before my period. And so I did, of course, a little Googling and just reading about like what your hormones do before labor. And I was like, I think my body is preparing for labor. I think my hormones are shifting and that's just throwing me a little off. So that was on Saturday. So on Sunday, it was November 29th. So Saturday was my due date when I started feeling that way. The day after, we were having lunch and right after lunch, I lost my mucus plug and I was like, okay, so things are moving in the right direction. Because my fear was I was going to go in for an induction on Wednesday and my body wouldn't have started labor at all. And I had some kind of anxiety about starting from zero. I was like, okay, body's moving that way, feeling good about this. Well, that night when I was cooking dinner, so around 6:30, I started having some mild contractions. I'm like, okay, so we're really headed in the, I'm headed towards labor. By the time dinner was over, around 7:45, they were picking up, and I just had this thought the whole time I was pregnant. I was like, I really think I'm going to go into labor at night. And so here we are, headed into nighttime. We had sent a text out to the family. We're like, hey, if we go to the hospital tonight, do you guys want us to call you and tell you, or do you just want us to text you? And everybody's like, call us. That was around 7:30. I had a video that night I had already planned on filming after dinner, and so we filmed that video. So if you've seen the Q&A, then I was in labor that whole time, which if you watch all the way to the end, you know at the end that I was going into labor. So it was a really good way just to distract. So I didn't start tracking my contractions until probably around, 8:30ish. They had started slow, but then they kind of started ramping up, and I thought, I should probably keep track of these. So as we were filming that video, they began growing more and more intense. So I got through the video. After that, I was just, breathing through the contractions, and so my doctor told me it was the 5-1-1. So contractions 5 minutes apart, a minute long for an hour is when I should call them. But my contractions were being, kind of weird because they were coming really frequent. So they were like 2.5, 3 to 3.5 minutes apart, but they were only 30 to 40, 45 seconds. So they were frequent. They just weren't the right formula. So finally around 11:30, I call my doctor's office and talk to the nighttime person. And they said, oh, you're probably in early labor. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know what I'm looking for. They're getting a little more intense. She's asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm calling. I'm a first time mom. So she said, if you feel like you need to go to the hospital, go to the hospital. But I think you're in early labor. Great. And I'm thinking, if this is early labor, they're getting a little more intense, and I'm getting concerned about actual labor at this point. So I told Matt, I was like, just go try to sleep. At least one of us needs to feel somewhat rested. There's no way I'm sleeping. And so he did go lay down. He laid down in all of his clothes. He didn't sleep, but he was just like not going to argue with me on this. So he's like, okay, I'll go lay down. Like he's actually going to go to sleep. So probably like an hour later, he comes in there because he hears me in labor. And I had like labored in the bath. And at this point, I was on my birthing ball. And I was just breathing through the contractions, but they were ramping up. Still, we're not at the like 511 that she told me I was supposed to be looking for. And so Matt's like, do you think you need to go to the hospital? I'm like, I don't know, because it was raining. I really didn't want to drive in the rain to the hospital just to get there and then send me back home. I'm like the doctor or the whoever I called, like the nighttime person told me that this is probably early labor, so I'm just gonna deal with it. And Matt's looking at me a little concerned because he's like, I don't know, you seem like you're in like actual labor. So he asked me again, do you want to go to the hospital? And finally I was like, I can't make decisions right now. I don't know. And so at that point he's like, I'm going to take that as a sign you probably need to go to the hospital. So after we decided we were going to go ahead and head to the hospital, we had to make arrangements for our dog. So we ended up just like tucking him into bed and being like, somebody's going to come get you in the morning, and made arrangements for one of our moms to come get him in the morning. So we headed to the hospital in the rain. We probably headed there around like 1:45 a.m. and got there and checked in and went to triage and answered all the questions and got checked to see how far along I was, and I was 3 centimeters. And so she gave me the option. She's like, she's like, you can go home or we can check you in. It's up to you. Because of COVID, there was no like walking around the hospital to progress more. So it was really like, I'm going to go back home or get admitted, since I couldn't just walk around, and it was raining outside and it's the middle of the night. So I was like, I really don't want to go all the way back home because I just have this feeling I'm going to get there and then turn around and come back. And I was like, well, I guess I could walk around outside under the awning in circles. So I wasn't real sure what to do. And then I had also tested positive for group B strep. And so they were going to have to give me antibiotics anyway. So she's like, well, we can go ahead and admit you and start that. So that's what I chose. So I got admitted. I got to my room. I was just laboring there. And so once I got to my room, things had started picking up a little bit. And so I was having contractions more intensely, and they were about, 2 to 3 minutes apart. That began to ramp up. So it's still like the middle of the night, or I guess early morning. I really thought I would labor on a birthing ball. I really thought I would either listen to like some hypno birthing tracks or music or something while I was laboring to kind of get in the zone. Those are not the ways I ended up laboring. I didn't want to listen to anything. I just wanted to like be in my mind, kind of in my body. I really did not like laboring on the birthing ball. I didn't like the way the pressure was on me when I was sitting on it. So I ended up laboring some standing up, some on all fours on the bed. And then the thing I didn't expect was I would sit on the toilet and labor, not like going to the bathroom, but like sit on the toilet because it was shaped like a donut and it took the pressure off of me. And that actually felt better. So those are the ways I was laboring, just kind of breathing through it. They were definitely getting more intense. There was big blocks of time where I don't remember anything. Like, I just remember being in the moment. I don't think I talked to Matt. I don't know. I was just like breathing through the contractions, waiting for the next one, breathing through the contractions, waiting for the next one. And it was such a unique experience. So going into labor, my goal from the beginning has been to have a spontaneous labor, which I did, which I was really excited about because I just didn't want to get induced. I just wanted to go through the whole experience, how my body wanted to do it. So I was really excited that I went to labor spontaneously. My other goal was to not get an epidural, so to have an unmedicated birth. And so that was just kind of my goals. I really wanted like my water to break on its own. So I just wanted my body to do what it was supposed to. I was hoping it would. So like I said, I was laboring. I got to about around 5 centimeters. I stalled there for a couple of hours and kind of hung. I wasn't progressing like I would hope I would. And so around 7:30, at that point I had been awake for 24 hours because I'd woken up in the morning, and obviously once I started labor, I never went back to sleep. So I was awake for 24 hours. I was already in labor for 13 hours. It was getting more and more intense. And like I said, I was laboring on the toilet at this point. And at one point, I was getting really tired. And so I fell asleep between contractions. So contractions were every, I don't know, a couple of minutes. So I got like a 2-minute nap, and then it woke me up with that intensity again. And after that, I just looked at Matt and I was like, I think I may want an epidural. He told me to do whatever I was comfortable with. And so in those moments, I just said a little prayer because I felt like I was letting myself down. I felt like I was letting Matt down. I felt like I was letting Wade down because I just had it in my heart. I wanted a natural birth or unmedicated birth. All birth is natural. An unmedicated birth. And I just really felt in those moments like I was failing at something. I prayed and I was like, God, if I feel like I'm also laying God down because he made me strong enough to do this. And so I just prayed and I was like, if I haven't progressed anymore, I think I need an epidural. And so the nurse knew I wanted to go unmedicated. So she's the one who's like, well, let's check you again before you commit to an epidural, which I thought was really nice because she knew what was in my heart. And I think she was also hoping I'd progress to give me that boost of confidence. So I got checked. I had not. I was still at 5 centimeters. And that was my deciding factor to go ahead and get an epidural. I knew I was getting tired. My water hadn't broke. And I knew once it broke, the contractions would be more intense. And the reason I finally decided to get an epidural is I knew I was getting tired. What I didn't want to happen is me making it all the way to pushing and not have the energy to push. And at that point, it become an emergency C-section, using forceps or a vacuum. Those are things I didn't want to happen more than I didn't want an epidural. And so I just felt like even though it was a disappointment to me a little bit, that getting an epidural was what was best for me and more so for Wade because I didn't want to put him in danger. Got an epidural. During the time I was getting the epidural, I only had, I think, one really hard contraction. But I had the strength and God gave me the strength just to breathe through it and not move since, getting an epidural. The epidural was fine. Before, I think I had a lot of fear on the process of getting an epidural. It was fine. When I think once I had the contractions, the epidural was no longer a huge concern. When you're not having contractions, you're sitting at your house. It seems terrifying. I got the epidural and I went to sleep and I slept for probably an hour and a half. I was out. I was exhausted. So I woke up feeling like a new person. I looked over, Matt was sleeping. And that was another thing also. When I was laboring, I looked at Matt. He wasn't laboring, so obviously it wasn't the same kind of tired, but he had been awake that time too. And he maybe wasn't going through the physical aspect, but he was going through the emotional aspect. He was concerned about me and he was being a great support person, but he was also like mentally trying to be there for me. And so I looked at his face at one time and saw his exhaustion 2. And so anyway, the epidural was for both of us. So I wake up and Matt was over there napping. I feel like a new person. The nurse came in and asked her to hand me my phone. And so at that point, for the first time since it started, I was able to communicate with our family. And Matt had been communicating with them, but after I got the epidural, there's this big gap where we hadn't communicated with them. So they're obviously kind of like, what's going on? They wanted like a play-by-play. So it was around 9 when we updated our family. I was still progressing kind of slowly. My water had been bulging the whole time, and it finally, so the doctor had come in and was like, do you want me to break your water? Like, she was suggesting breaking the water. And I asked if I could have a little more time, because I really, again, wanted to use the least amount of interventions as possible. So she granted me that. And my hospital was amazing. Like, the whole, like, doctors, nursing staff, everyone was amazing on letting me have the labor that I envisioned and the delivery I envisioned, as long as we were still safe. So they were very good about giving their suggestions, but also giving me space. They never pressured me or anything like that. So when I asked, could I have some time before my water was broken, she granted me that. So it finally did break around 11:30. The nurse started a cervical exam. As soon as she did, it broke. So it was just like, it was ready. So my water broke. That was really cool. Like, I'm glad it broke on its own. And so I just kept laboring and progressing from that point. So after my water broke, my dilation sped up some. So at 3-ish, I was 7 centimeters. One thing I was worried about with the epidural is I wouldn't have any feeling in my legs. Well, God was just with me through this whole thing, because I really had an amazing delivery and birth and all of it. And so I had complete feeling in my legs, but I couldn't feel the contractions. So I could turn from one side to the other. I could move my legs. They felt numb, but not completely dead. So it was a great epidural. I couldn't have asked for anything better. So after 7 centimeters, I slowed down a little bit with my dilation. And so they would flip me from side to side. I used a peanut ball to help move things along. Around 5 o'clock, I was at 9 centimeters. Then things kind of slowed again. Around maybe 6:30, suggested a little bit of Pitocin just to get things moving along. At that point, I'm like, yes, let's do that. I think my exact words was, sounds great, I'm hungry. Because it had been a while since I'd eaten at that point. So that did, it progressed me along, and I started pushing around 7-ish. And it took me a little bit to get into that rhythm. I could feel it, so that was good. I could actually feel a lot of it. It just, I don't know, something about feeling the contraction coming on and knowing when to push. It took me a minute. And so I started kind of getting the hang of it. And then the doctor came in after I'd been pushing for maybe 45 minutes, somewhere right in there, 30, 45 minutes. I was doing an okay job pushing, but I don't think I was doing a great job pushing. She kind of drill sergeant me, and she was like, push harder, harder. And usually I don't respond well to that, but in the moment I was like, fine, let me show you how hard I can push. And so I did, and so that was like one round, and then we did another. And after that, like, I could feel weight coming, and the doctor was like, stop pushing. And because she didn't have like any of her like gear on, so she was trying to get suited up. My body, like, it's weird because your body just goes into automatic mode. I wasn't pushing, but my body was, and she's like, stop pushing. And I go, I can't, like, I cannot stop pushing. And sweet Matt is trying to like help me breathe through it, because he can see both situations. He sees where I am, and he knows like baby's coming, and he sees like where the doctors are, that they're not quite ready. Matt's like, just breathe. And it's the only time I think I snapped at him. I go, stop telling me to breathe. The baby is coming. And so he did. And my fear was, I'm afraid Wade's going to come out and no one's there because they're trying to like get their stuff ready. Luckily, Matt said he was in tune with the situation. He's like, I was ready to catch him if he came out. So she didn't get all her gear on. She got enough on, and Wade was there basically. It was such a cool experience. Like, I never thought I wanted to have labor, be pregnant, all those things, but I wanted a child, but I didn't necessarily care about the process itself. But I'm really happy I got to go through it because it was such a fun experience. I know that sounds like a real weird word to use, but it was really, really cool to go through. So Wade got there and they put him on my chest. I don't know, that moment will forever be burned into my head. It was just, I'm getting emotional just talk about it. Just seeing his face for the first time, I'd wonder what he looked like, and I was just so ready to meet him. We just had some skin to skin time as the staff was cleaning him up and everything. It was funny because when I started pushing, it was just me, Matt, and the nurse. And then right before Wade came out, like when I was saying I couldn't stop pushing, it was me, Matt, the nurse, and the doctor. And then somehow, as soon as he was out, there's a whole room full of people. I feel like they just magically appeared because I don't know where they came from. So Wade was just on my chest as they like took care of him. Matt cut the cord, which I think is really cool. He also, one of my requests, which is really kind of strange, was to see this placenta. It's because I had read so much about it, and I think it's such an amazing organ and design from God, and I just think it's really, really cool. And so my request was I wanted to see it. So Matt went over there and actually got footage of the placenta, and the doctor was so nice and like showed him like where the veins were and kind of talked through it for a few minutes. I see them over there having like their little moment with the placenta, which was just kind of fun. And if you watched our birth vlog, there's a quick shot of the placenta in there because it's an amazing organ and it has this like tree of life design. After he was born, they put him on my chest. They did all the things to clean him up and check him out. He was doing perfect. Like he was doing so good. I was just in this happy bubble. It was really cute because I was just talking to him and I'd look over at Matt and I'm like, say something to him. And Matt was just so emotional. He's like, I can't talk, which was just really sweet. And if you watch the birth vlog, there's this one like quick shot of Matt right after Wade was born. And it's funny because that was an unintentional shot. He had the Osmo. If you click it so many times, it'll turn towards you like a selfie mode instead of out. And so he had accidentally done that. So it was just an unintentional happy accident. And so I love just having his face captured because that's what I saw when Wade was born. And so Matt he couldn't talk. He just was just enjoying the moments. And normally they had told me that there's a lot of people in the room when you're giving birth because they have like NICU people in there and just like extra support staff just in case like me or Wade needed anything. And they're like, usually they'll grab your phone and get some pictures and stuff. Well, like I said, there was no one in there when Wade was born besides like the four of us. We all had jobs. And so we didn't have any pictures of that moment, like the first moment he got to me. Matt was real quick and picked up the camera. But I did think to ask if somebody would take a picture of the three of us together. And it's just so real. Like, there's nothing perfectly posed about it. It's not the best quality picture because it was taken with a phone, but it was just, it's everything I remembered in the moment. And so I'm really glad I thought clear enough to have someone grab a picture. Because the emotions captured on all three of our faces. Wade's is a little more like, not sure what I just went through. I think I'm okay. And then Matt and I are it's sheer like just joy. So yeah, after he was born, we had skin to skin time. We started nursing. He did great with that. I was trying to figure it out. I feel like he was doing better than me, but it all went well. Matt did run. So we have this hour. It was probably longer than an hour. At that point, like from that point on, I have no idea what time anything happened. But we had some time. And so I told Matt, because Wade was born at 8:15. And I was like, if we're getting anything to eat, like things are going to start closing. So he actually ran across to get something to eat for us, because again, I was starving. That was my motivation for pushing, is I'm like, I'm hungry. Once he's born, I can eat. And so I stayed back, and Wade got his footprints and glucose checked, and all his vitals, like how much he weighed, how long he was, all the things. And then Matt got back with food, and it was about at that point time to see if I could stand up, because until I stood up, I couldn't go to the next stage of recovery. And so I stood up, no problem. Like I said, I had a great epidural. So I stood up, and I had to go to the bathroom because that was another like checklist, like milestone I needed to meet. All that worked out good. They got me all like postpartum prepped, and then we headed to our recovery room, because the labor room was not the same as like the room we stayed in the rest of the time. Oh, also, I didn't say this, but Matt said it was really funny from his perspective, because like above, like where I was laboring, there's these big lights. And he said right before Wade came out, like these big lights come on, and he's like, it's like a show or a movie, like all of a sudden like these spotlights come on, and he was born. So anyway, I thought that was funny. I have no idea what was going on. I was just trying to like birth a child. So we went to our recovery room, and it's funny, they wheelchaired me there. And afterwards, I was asking Matt, this was like weeks after he was born. I said, who carried Wade to the room? And I'm like, I guess I did. And I'm sure I did. I'm sure he was in my arms, but something about like that transition is a little bit of a blur. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure I had him. I just don't remember having him, because Matt had all of our stuff. The nurse had me because I was in a wheelchair. So it's just funny that I can't remember who had our son. You think I'd have good tabs on him. So we went to our recovery room. They got us all settled in, showed us where everything was. And then they said, well, let us know if you need us, and left. So there we were with a child. They had a lot of confidence in us, I guess. It's funny because I thought like that moment would be terrifying for me. And I actually thought like leading up to it, Matt going to get his food and leaving me alone with Wade would be terrifying. But neither were scary. It's something about when he got here. I know it sounds cliche, but it just like felt natural. I don't know, some instincts kicked in, I guess. I didn't feel scared about being the one who was taking care of him. So we got settled in our room. Matt got the food out. He actually went and grabbed Carrabba's because he was like, oh, that would be like a really like good like celebratory meal. But as hungry as I was before Wade was born, I was equally not hungry afterwards, which I felt bad because Matt was so sweet and went and got like a really like good meal for us. I just wasn't hungry anymore. I don't know. It was all the emotions and hormones and all of the stuff. But I ate a little bit, and then we just kind of went through the night of figuring out how to be parents. We, he ate and slept, and we tried to swaddle. If you watched my what's in my hospital bag video, I had mentioned like we are terrible swaddlers. It's really hard with those hospital blankets. It was, I think, the second day when I was like, oh wait, I did bring like a copper pearl swaddle, which was way easier. The nursing staff, obviously, they're pros. They come in, and everybody who came in, we'd go, show us how you swaddle, because everyone swaddles very differently. And so they would, and we'd try that, and we'd still fail at it. So it was really, really fun to learn how to parent with Matt, and to learn how to be a parent with Wade, learning how to be a newborn. he was very patient with us as we just tried to figure out, diapering, swaddling, all the things, feeding. So we had this just little bubble of a time where we just got to learn to be parents and be a family together. Because I was Group B strep positive, I had to stay in the hospital. They said 48 hours after he was born. I ended up staying a little less, but we ended up checking in Sunday. Let me get my days right. Sunday night. He was born Sunday night. We were there on Monday, and then we checked out on Tuesday. So there's pros and cons to having a kid during a pandemic. The birth process was exactly the same. I didn't have to wear a mask. Matt only had to wear a mask when he was out in the hallway. There was nothing different about that. The thing that was different was that our family couldn't be there. They couldn't be there waiting for Wade to be born, and they couldn't be there come visit afterwards. And so one really fun thing they did, and I'm kind of glad they did, even though it didn't have anything to do with me, was they had a wait party together. My mom went over to Matt's parents' house, and they just all waited together and waiting on news of little baby boy being born. And so I think that's really fun that they still got to have kind of that experience that they would have had in the waiting room, but they got to have it more comfortable at their house. And so they were all waiting there for us to update them and send first pictures and all that. But the time, once we got into our room, the time at the hospital, we were really sad our family couldn't be there. But the thing it did give us was also a gift too, which was we got to be in this little bubble the whole time we were there. And so for those couple of days and nights, we got to just learn how to be a family. Matt and I got to just constantly say how cute Wade is and learn how to do the things a baby needs and try to figure him out. And he got bonding time with us and trying to figure us out. So it was just, even though we were really sad our family couldn't be there, we can also see the good in it, which is we got this little special bubble time. But we were really ready for our family to meet him. And so they all came to the house as soon as we got home on that Tuesday and got to meet him for the first time. And then my dad traveled up and got to meet him too that same week. So it was really fun for us to get to introduce him. So that time did come. It just wasn't at the hospital. It was just slightly delayed, but not that much. So yeah, so at the hospital, we spent time together. Postpartum was good. There's nothing unexpected with that. Nothing bad. It was just going through it. I think the thing that shocked me the most was how I looked postpartum. So I think I didn't know what it would feel like to go in with a huge pregnancy belly and to leave without that. It wasn't as emotional for me as I thought it was going to be. It was just odd to see my body closer back to what it was previous. So yeah, that was really just kind of interesting. So I didn't have any complications or anything afterwards. It was just, I don't know, I had a really, really good birth experience. It wasn't what I exactly envisioned it being, but I couldn't imagine anything better. So I know a lot of moms want a certain thing when they go in the hospital. They have, even people who say, I don't have a birth plan, they do have expectations. And so to me, the best thing I did for myself is to have, this is my ideal, but also to not put all the weight on that. So if it didn't turn out exactly how I expected it to, that I wouldn't be completely devastated. And so giving myself the grace where I made the decision to get an epidural because I thought it was best for me and Wade, and letting myself be okay with that. Now, was I disappointed? Yeah, I was a little. Even, after I got home, I was a little disappointed in it. I felt like I needed to almost apologize for it. But, the only person who put that expectation on me to go unmedicated was myself. And I was kind of disappointed in myself a little bit, but being 12 weeks postpartum, I'm okay with it. Because I really know that it was the best decision and there's nothing to be disappointed about. I got to feel natural labor. I labored. I'm really happy I labored as long as I did because I think it helped push my body forward more. And then I'm equally as happy that I got an epidural because what it also gave me, besides giving me a chance to rest so I could push when it came time, was it gave me an opportunity to spend time with Matt and really enjoy those moments. Right before I got the epidural, we weren't there, like we were there together, but I was in a different place than he was. And I think that's how I think that's natural. It's how it would be. But I also enjoyed when I got an epidural and we got to just talk and I got to text with my family. So there's benefits to everything. Just like I said, there's benefits to, restrictions from COVID. There's also benefits in epidural, and the flip sides are just equally as good. So there really is no right or wrong way to do any of it. But this was just kind of my experience, and I loved everything about it. I just loved it. I loved the happy parts. I even loved the pain. It was amazing. I just don't. I wish I had better vocabulary. I always think that when I try to describe things, but it's more than I ever could have imagined. So once Tuesday got there, I got the go ahead. Wade got the go ahead. We were ready to head home. Matt drove home, so I can't really speak for what it felt like driving us home. I will say putting him in the car seat, once he got in there, we buckled him in. We just kind of looked at him. We're like, is this right? Because this baby is very tiny in this car seat, and I don't feel like it's going to do anything for him. It was just really, I don't know. He was very tiny in that car seat. But we got him buckled in. I sat back there with him on the way home. I just felt like he was just like, it didn't have good support. I don't know. I think it's what car seats look like when there's like a 2-day-old baby in it. But I made him hold my hand all the way home just to make sure he was doing okay because he, obviously couldn't hold his head up. He just looked so fragile. I'm like, hold mommy's hand. Mommy needs it for you. And so we just drove home so we drove to the hospital. It was raining and nighttime. And we drove home and it was this bright, sunny day. It was chilly, but not too cold. And just making that same drive back home and having Wade with us, and now I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. It was such an emotional experience. It was just so surreal. It was just so surreal that he was sitting there in the car seat with us. And so I don't know. Once we got home, we got out of the car, and I think the most emotional thing was getting out of the car and standing there in our yard with our house and me and Matt and Wade, and I never thought we would get to bring a baby home. I never knew we would get that moment that we would bring a child into this home. And I think arriving back home with him was just so many answered prayers. And it was just such an overwhelming feeling. We just, the three of us just stood there and did this and just cried and just thank God and just enjoyed that moment together. And it's something I will never forget. So I'm fine. So once we got inside, we let the family know we were home and gave the okay to come over and meet their grandson, their nephew, and cousin. Cousins were a few days later. But yeah, we gave the go ahead, and then the grandparents were the first ones to come over. And yeah, they got to meet their grandson for the first time, and it was just such a beautiful experience to see them love on him, and just for him to get to meet them. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. All the grandparents were here, and they made the offer of, did we want to go take a nap to while they just loved on him. And I would have thought it before, I would have said no, but Matt and I were like, yeah, we will we will take a nap. That would be wonderful. The night before, Wade was cluster feeding, and we didn't really get any sleep. It was rough. We were pretty tired. And so we went and took a nap and woke up feeling like completely new people. Wade was in good hands, just getting loved on. And yeah, so that's kind of the whole birth experience from the time we were at our house. And I kind of thought labor was coming soon, all the way till we got back a few days later. I couldn't have planned it any better, honestly. I'm happy with how everything turned out, even the things I didn't expect. And Wade was healthy and safe, and I was healthy and safe. And Matt was an amazing support through the entire thing. I couldn't have done it without him at all. Even when he ran, every time he ran to get food, I was just ready for him to get back, just because, I don't know, he was my person. I couldn't have done any of it without him. It's been fun. It's been really fun. If you have any questions, ask. I hope this gives you some confidence as you go into your birth experience. I hope it gives you some peace of mind if you're planning on one type of birth and for some reason something has to change, that it can still be beautiful and wonderful. And I hope you've enjoyed it. A lot of you have followed us from the very beginning of our experience all the way through now, so thank you for joining us. And some of you guys may be new, and thanks for joining us now. You guys have all been great in your encouragement throughout everything, so thank you guys for that. Keep watching. We have more videos coming. If there's something you want to see or hear from us, just put some suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.